my gosh.
That was good. David hasn't lost a step.
Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Gotchell. I'm the Lower Paxton Township Manager. In typical fashion, I'll give a brief overview of tonight's agenda before we begin, particularly for the benefit of those who may be watching at home this evening. Tonight, the board has a busy workshop planned. Obviously, we are all here to take part in that in some way, beginning with a number of organizational actions, including acceptance of the resignation of Mr. Chrisman from the Board of Supervisors. After this, the board will entertain a number of presentations, starting with Mr. Wenger and company on a proposed advance refunding of the 2014 and 2016 bonds. Next, members of the Parks and Recreation Board will have an opportunity to speak and greet the supervisors before we hear from a number of municipal and community organizations on the proposed Dauphin County local share grant applications. At the conclusion of all the presentations, the board will take action on Resolution 2020, accepting dedication of certain right-of-way along Fairmont Drive in conjunction with the Fairmont Drive and Locust Lane traffic signal project. Lastly, before moving to adjourn, the board will take action on improvement guarantees. With all that said, board members are seated and prepared to conduct business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gotchell. We'll call this meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors to order, and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Supervisor Zumas, if you would do us the honors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we proceed to public comment, I would like to announce the Board of Supervisors met in executive session prior to this meeting to receive information from staff and will be doing so again following the meeting. The time now is for public comment, and public comment is for items that are not on the agenda tonight. If you wish to address an item that's on the agenda, you will be allocated time to do that at that particular point in the agenda. So would anybody like to address the board on an item not on the agenda this evening? If so, please come to the podium. Okay, I see everybody is here for agenda items then. Okay, with that, we are going to move to our first action item. The Board of Supervisors has received a letter from Supervisor Gary Chrisman. Mr. Chrisman, who has diligently served our community, and of course it's not letting me go to the letter. Let's try.
No, go back down.
Go back down.
That link, remember you gotta go down here.
Oh, we got to go back down.
No. Yep.
Anyway, sign in again. This happens every week. To existing account. And my apologies for technology. And now, if all goes well, all didn't go well. We're going to get there, folks. Just give me a second. Gary Chrisman, letter of resignation. There we are. Mr. Chrisman served the Board of Supervisors, on the Board of Supervisors for 20 years. Interestingly, he was appointed to fill my unexpired term when I resigned to become a Dauphin County Commissioner back in 2000. So Gary has been on the board ever since, and we would, of course, like to extend our deep appreciation to Mr. Chrisman for his many, many years, 20 years of public service. At a later date, we'll do the appropriate honors for Mr. Chrisman. But tonight we do want to mention that he did serve us for 20 years, which is an incredibly long period of time, and did so with a great degree of professionalism and passion for our community. So we will greatly miss his participation in board matters. With that, we do need to accept his resignation from the Board of Supervisors. Would there be a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion with regret that we accept the resignation of Gary A. Chrisman from the Board of Supervisors.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Now, that action begins the clock on a 30-day period in which this board has an opportunity to now name a supervisor to fill the remainder of Mr. Chrisman's unexpired term. His term extends until the end of 2021, so there's just under a year and a half left on that term. Had he not resigned, he would have had to stand for re-election next year if he would have wanted to remain on the board. So we have 30 days to appoint a supervisor to hold that seat between now and December 31st, 2021. Last year, when we had the
45 days. We had 30 days to accept the resignation.
no, we had 45 days to accept the resignation and 30 days to appoint. Correct? That's correct. Yes. Yeah, which is why we waited till this meeting to accept the resignation, because we wanted to allow enough time for us to receive resumes and consider whom we may wish to appoint. So we will now be able to make the appointment at the first business meeting in September. So that gives us about 3 or 4 weeks to consider who will be appointed. Our process when Mr. Hawk passed away last year was that the township manager will accept resumes and letters of interest from any registered voter in Lower Paxton Township who has lived in the community for at least a year, who would be interested in being appointed. When Mr. Gottschall receives those resumes, he will distribute them to the 4 remaining supervisors, and then each supervisor on his or her own has an opportunity to interact with those applicants in whatever way he or she deems to be appropriate. And then at the first business meeting in September, any applicant who receives 3 or more votes would be appointed to fill the unexpired term. So that would be the process, and we'll want to make sure, Mr. Gottschall, that we get on the landing page on the website that there is a vacancy and we are accepting those resumes beginning tonight. So that is the process. Mr. Chrisman served as vice chairman of this board, which his resignation creates an opening for vice chairman. So at this point, I would like to open the floor for a nomination or nominations for the position of vice chairman of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Robin Lindsay to fill the position of Township Vice Chairperson.
Mrs. Lindsay has been nominated for vice chairperson of the board. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of electing Supervisor Lindsay vice chair, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Madam Vice Chairperson.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, Mrs. Lindsay served as treasurer of the board, so by becoming our new vice chairperson, Mrs. Lindsay vacates the position of treasurer, and therefore we have to elect a new treasurer, board treasurer. So are there any nominations for the position of township board treasurer?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to put the name of Norman Zumas for treasurer of Lower Paxton Township.
Supervisor Zumas has been nominated for treasurer. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any additional nominations? Are there any additional nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of electing Supervisor Zumas as board treasurer, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Congratulations, Mr. Zumas. Spend our money wisely.
Thank you.
So, speaking of spending our money wisely, we will then move to a presentation on proposed advance refunding of several bond issues. We have Mr. Wenger, Mr. Verdelli, and is Mr. Bova with us? No.
Mr. Bova could not make it. His wife, I think, just had a medical procedure, so he's playing nurse.
Okay, well, family first.
I wish you were here, but
I'm sure that you and Mr. Verdelli can adequately fill us in on all the details.
we will try. Good
Thank you,
evening,
sir.
and thank you. So we were here just a couple months ago working on a financing, and since then, taxable interest rates in particular have declined significantly, which allows us to present tonight for your consideration advance refundings of a portion of both the 2014 and 2016 bonds. The total refunding amount would be approximately $29 million, and the debt service savings, aggregate debt service savings as of this week are about $7.2 million. Present value, that's about 5.3. If we do this as we've done, and it's mostly sewer projects, so we have always taken those savings equally over time. If we continue that practice, it would be approximately $275,000 a year from 2021 to 2046. So significant annual savings related to those two refundings. If you had some real budget need, we could front load that money into 2021 and 22. That would be about $2.1 million in those 2 years. We don't need that decision today. We really wanted to highlight the market opportunity for your consideration. And if you would like to proceed, we could come back next week or whatever meeting you would want us to return to with a parameters ordinance, which you've adopted in the past, which does nothing more than authorize us to move forward. It does not obligate you as a board or the township to act on the refunding, so that if interest rates were to reverse and the savings were to decline to a level where it didn't make sense, you're not obligated to move forward. We just got a rating, so we think that we could do that fairly quickly. Our goal would be to be in the market selling refunding bonds, sometime in the month of September, so we could have all this wrapped up, I think, well in advance of the upcoming election.
We're not sure what's going to happen to rates thereafter.
Yeah, we would prefer to steer clear of that. I wouldn't hazard a guess at this point, but it certainly does present the opportunity for some amount of upheaval one way or the other. Again, they would be taxable bonds, general obligation bonds of the township with a subsidy agreement with the authority. There is a small component of this that is attributable to the general fund. It's about $3.3 million. The savings allocated then to the general fund are about $300,000. So again, most of the economic benefit goes to the sewer system.
Okay.
Jay, did we miss this when we did the?
No, rates have
Okay.
declined significantly. This actually there were no savings when we did the last financing.
Okay, 'cause I was just curious, 'cause we
the
just
market's
did
moved,
that.
what, 50 basis points? In about 3 weeks, the market's moved to 0.5%.
Okay.
Dramatic drop in
Wow.
taxable municipal rates.
Okay, thank you.
Because we had looked at it, because that would have been the time, ideally, to combine them.
Okay.
Well, thank you for continuing to keep a very close eye on it.
Brad, did I miss anything? Lou, do you have any comments?
I think maybe just to follow up that comment.
Could you come to the podium, Lou, so our vast television audience can see you?
Sorry, sure. Lou Verdelli, RBC Capital Markets. Just to follow up on that question, and Jay kind of touched on it. These are taxable bonds. What we sold previously was tax exempt, and what we have seen is just an incredible amount of investor demand for municipal taxable bonds from a whole new group of investors, and that has pushed the credit spread down, the additional kind of charge on top of where these price versus treasuries, and we've seen that come down, 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 and it's made a lot more taxable advance refundings like
Okay.
this work right now. So we're out showing these to a lot of people, and it wasn't there months ago.
Okay, I was just curious because we had done that, so.
Yeah, no, it's a
Okay.
good question.
Yeah, good.
Tom, do you want to add anything before we wrap this up?
Next Tuesday? Good. Good. Would the chairman of the Sewage Authority have any questions or comments? Mr. Blaine?
No comments. I didn't having seeing this on a regular basis, take advantage of the interest rates the way they are right now. We might as well we should do it.
Okay.
Term stays the same. We're not extending term. It's just like refinancing a mortgage.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Then we can proceed with advertising for next week if everybody on the board agrees?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I'm not forgetting your back on the side here, Mr. Judd. That's-
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we now have greetings and a general presentation from the Lower Paxton Township Parks and Recreation Board. Terry?
Good evening. The Parks and Recreation Board has had a lot of discussion lately regarding their role as an advisory board and as a representative of the community, and how this applies to their mission as a board. So knowing that there are some new faces here and some new faces on the Parks and Rec Board, they kind of wanted to introduce themselves and open the door to communicating with this board as to how best serve the needs, the recreational needs of the community. So tonight we have from the Parks and Rec Board, Bob McIntyre is going to speak. We also have, if you could just raise your hand, we have Stan Smith, Jim Seidler there in the back. And looks like Bob would like to speak first.
Very good.
Not necessarily sure that like to speak first, but somebody's got to do it. Lower Paxton Township's Park and Recreation Board has been around for 62 years. I know because it was formed the same year I was born. I was not a member, but Tom George was, and he told me how wonderful it was all along the line. If you look at every survey that's been done over the last 30 years in this township, the thing that the citizens cherish the most is the park system here in the township. It is world class, and you know, we have you and the previous supervisors to thank for that. You guys have a difficult role in trying to fund and maintain these parks with limited dollars being available to come in. I think we're at the point now in the township's lifespan that we're not going to be looking for big plots of land anymore. They just don't exist. As Tom used to say, black gold is going out of style. Mm-hmm. But we do have a couple places, and we're trying to make the best out of them with limited assets. We serve to make you guys look good by taking a lot of the questions of planning and the mechanisms in how we're going to set up the parks or do things like that. And we enjoy doing that, and we'll continue to do that. The one thing that I miss, and I've been on the park board in 2 separate increments for probably about 24 years, the thing I miss is the interaction with the supervisors. We used to have at least an annual or biennial meeting with the board, and occasionally a supervisor would come by a meeting and say hi. And we'd welcome you to come to meetings. I know your schedules are just so ridiculous. But, you know, if anytime you have any questions or problems, or you just want to yell at us, please call us and we'll come in and see what's going on. Okay? Stan.
Thank you, Bob.
No, thank you very much. And yes, sir.
Let the record show that it was Bob that wanted you to yell at him. So if there's any yelling, Bob McIntyre is the guy.
We have no yelling. Nothing to yell about.
My name is Stan Smith, and I was noting as I looked across this impressive dais of supervisors that the last time I did this, none of you were seated in these chairs. And so as Bob referenced, we believe it's important because of the role we play to serve you that from time to time we have a time to chat. Mm-hmm. And so tonight what I'd like to do briefly, because I know you've got a full schedule, is set the stage for future conversations. First, kind of a quick recap of some things, a bit historical without getting in the weeds, and then a short statement about expectation, and then 4 or 5 kind of next steps that perhaps we could look at together. Bob already referenced the length of time that he served. With just the folks that are here tonight, and we're missing a couple of our board members, we've got well over 50, 60, maybe close to 100 years of actual service on the Lower Paxton Township Park and Rec Board, which is, I think, a very impressive kind of knowledge history that we bring and offer to you because we understand that we exist to serve you and our fellow residents of Lower Paxton Township. In recent years, some of the ways that we have served the Board of Supervisors was in looking and developing the plans for Wolfersberger property, developing a policy that the supervisors adopted on naming rights for some of the park facilities, working with the staff of the Park and Rec Department on adjustments in the fees for use of facilities. We've met with various community groups on your behalf to talk about their needs in terms of parks, both existing neighborhoods as well as new neighborhoods. We've also been a channel through which various community groups, local sports groups for youth, have come to present their needs and their visions and strategies. We've also reviewed at your behest and made recommendations back to you concerning land that was being set aside in new developments for parks. And then we've worked with the Township Park and Rec staff, and let me just say on behalf of the board that we are well served by Terry and Kathy and Barb in the leadership they provide and the opportunity they give us to serve and to give them advice. But we've worked with them in developing a 5-year plan for the repair, upgrading, development of parks and park facilities in Lower Paxton Township. Expectation. You know, I think this demonstrates, and our presence tonight, I hope, would demonstrate that we've tried to consistently provide counsel, advice, and input, not only because we are the board of the Park and Rec Board of Lower Paxton Township, but we are residents of Lower Paxton Township. And just this morning, I walked one of the parks with my wife, which is a daily activity now. So we also represent concerned and committed citizens that are at your behest for counsel and for advice. And to kind of, since this is the first time that we've had a chance to, as a board to speak to you, let me reiterate that if our experience, our knowledge, our passion, our history are of value, then we seek to be called on to continue performing the role that we've been called upon to do for these many years in Lower Paxton Township. So let me suggest 4 or 5 next steps. And then, Chairman Henry, if there's some questions that you might have, we'll be glad to respond. Remember, yelling goes to Bob. Any questions can go to Jim or myself.
We'll make sure Bob gets all the yelling.
Yeah. He moved to the back. So
I see that.
Yeah. Okay, 5 possible next steps. First, clarify, and this is, I guess, asking from you because we serve at your discretion, to clarify how we can best serve you and the residents of the township in terms of providing advice and counsel as it relates to parks and recreation in the township. Secondly, we would love to have a chance to sit down with you and to kind of share with you and discuss some of our thinking about a 5-year plan. Now, obviously, the economic reality makes a lot of things not nearly as maybe tenable as they once were, but we've worked on a plan with Terry and her team, indicating some priorities, some anticipated cost. We feel like that would be a worthwhile conversation we could have together. Number 3, explore other funding streams. Early on, when we were discussing naming rights, we had, I think, a very helpful conversation with the Board of Supervisors at that time about how to look at the utilization of sponsorships, et cetera, as an avenue for income. And we've not really finished that conversation, but we're open to continuing that conversation. I think that the last one, I said 5, but there's really only 4. One thing that we think might be helpful to all of us is to conduct a community survey, not been done in quite a while as it relates to the parks and rec facilities in the township, and just get broader input of priority interest in the residents of Lower Paxton Township concerning parks and recreation. So again, let me just say thank you for this opportunity on a busy evening, busy schedule to have this chance to dialogue with you, and we're glad to respond to questions or comments.
You know, Brad, I think that we'll want to schedule a get-together sooner rather than later on a non-meeting night because we have a lot to talk about. Terry and Rachel met with the board in executive session. We have, with the potential of the YMCA taking over the Friendship Center, of course, as you know, a large part of Parks and Recreation is very integrated into that operation. So the question arises, many questions arise as to how we're going to structure the department, what activities will be Parks and Rec, what activities the Y may have. So as we proceed through that process, we have a lot of details that need to be worked out. So this is actually the perfect time to start those conversations.
Good.
Because we have major changes in one way or another, we have major changes coming.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, thank you. We would be very glad, and again, we understand that we were created, if you will, to provide advice and counsel to you, and we really want to do that. And so as we can be in those conversations, it gives us a chance to share not only our perspective as a citizen, but also we've got decades and decades of history in working with Parks and Recreation in the township.
well, with a major restructuring and a major change coming, now's a great time for us to have that input.
Good, good.
So your timing couldn't have been better.
Good.
Mr. Smith, would you be able to tell the residents in the room and the residents that are watching how many parks we do have in Lower Paxton? How many acres of parks?
You know, I knew I was going to get that question, and I walked off and left my notes. And I'm going to call on Terry because there are categories, for instance, and this may be new for a lot of folks, we have parks that are for the township as a whole, like the Coons Park. And then we also have parks that are within particular neighborhoods that are kind of servicing that neighborhood. But we also have a number of not, I won't say a number, we also have small parcels scattered throughout the township that have been set aside for that, but are not really, at this point, usable. And I'm not able to call all of that from memory, but I think Terry can do that.
18 public parks, approximately 382 plus acres of park.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to say 16, so. Okay.
That was off the top of my head. Don't worry.
No, in all fairness.
See, that's why you're seated there and I'm over here, Chris.
I had it written down because
No,
Terry
no.
told us, but I wanted you to tell us.
Terry told us that an hour ago. This is why we're remembering.
Yeah, that's how we know. I just wanted the residents that are watching and
Well,
them
thank you.
to-
And I said they're going to ask that, and I left my notes at home to be able to speak to that. So,
I don't think residents realize how many parks we do have in the township, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm guessing, but in terms of a township of the size of Lower Paxton, we probably have more parks than most any other
Yep.
Yeah.
municipality
You're probably
like
right.
this in the whole state. It's
Well, and
pretty
that was
amazing.
going to be a question. I'm sorry, Robin, you used to have another question. Just, Mr. Smith, what do you think the parks are utilized to the degree they should be? Knowing, as you said, we really don't have a lot of space to add, or are they kind of at their maximum? I mean, I'm trying to see where we slide in outreach and getting, because I'm always excited when we just sent an e-newsletter out that talked about our parks and I think the average person probably doesn't have a real clear idea of how many there are, where they are, what the amenities are. So how much of that do you think they're underutilized as opposed to all the other issues, funding, everything else that we have to tackle?
That's a great question and really speaks to the conversation we need to have, because I would say, from my perspective, and Terry could be more specific, I don't think any of our parks are underutilized. I think that the challenge is we have very attractive parks. And when you consider, the various sports activities, baseball, soccer, we are very, very much in demand. And so we could probably, if we were to double the acreage today, we could probably use all of that. I think the challenge is that in the midst of that, there are also some new kinds of sports. For instance, when I first came on the Park and Rec Board, we did not have cricket in the township. We have a cricket league in the township now. We got a bocce court now. Pickleball now. And so I think it's a great question, because we're going to have to weigh based on priority, and I think this is where a survey may help us, kind of what the community interest is, because I think there will need to be some adjustments, but it will not be because we have space unused. And it's evaluating the best usage of the space that we have.
Thank you. That's important. And please let the committee members know that we value the work you do and the scope of the area you have to cover. I've only been on board a couple of years. We really don't have regular meetings with any of our committees, and whether that's, we should or not. But I hope nobody feels that they're, and we get your minutes every time you guys meet, we get your minutes, we read your minutes. Please let everybody know that regardless of how many times we actually do get to talk to each other, that you are very much appreciated, very valued. I'm always sensitive that, we do have a Parks and Rec director who serves as the liaison, and I'm very respectful of her position, and I'm sensitive as far as, if a committee would work directly with us too much and kind of cuts out the staff or the department head. There's a certain way that we have to do things to keep it organized and to respect the professionals who come to work every day. So that's all part of the mix as far as how we view committees and things like that. But as the chairman said, let's for these things, let's talk.
Good. Well, and let me just say that we highly value the leadership and the knowledge that Terry brings, and so we wouldn't want to participate in something that did not engage her. So thank you for saying that. Let me also say one final thing, recognizing that as members of the Park and Rec Board, we are volunteers. We applied and said we were interested in serving, and you guys appoint us, and I don't know, maybe after tonight you won't want to reappoint some of us, but we've been doing it for a while. And what that communicates, and I hope you catch this, this is not like just a little kind of side gig for us. This is something we're engaged in as volunteers because we're passionate about the community in which we live. We're passionate about the quality of life that we provide, and we want to give counsel and help. And so calling on us to participate, even in the sticky conversations, is not, we want to engage in that. Otherwise, we wouldn't. We got lots of things we could do, and we want to be engaged.
Great.
And that we would best serve you that way. But that also gives us a sense of, that's a good thing that we're donating all these hours and hours because we're having a chance to give influence and significance to the work of the Park and Rec Board. Well,
Thank you.
any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, both of you.
Yep, it was
And no yelling. So.
no, it was nice that Bob didn't sit closer to the door.
All right. Well, certainly we're going to have a lot of conversations and much planning and reorganization to do here. So we do, however, have to proceed on to presentations of proposed Dauphin County local share grant applications. And we have 8 of them here. What we will do is ask if there is a representative of the organizations who wish to request local share grants to come to the podium and take 4 or 5 minutes up to tell us what your grant request is and why it will benefit the community, although a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory in that regard. So we'll start out with the Linglestown Baseball Association. Do we have a representative? Sir, if you would please come to the podium and give us your name and address. And I believe that there would be a document. Oh, it's done this again.
And mine just did the same thing.
It did mine too.
It timed out again. Please proceed while I figure this one out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, supervisors. My name is Robert Chernikoff, Bob Chernikoff. Lower Paxton Township resident for many years. I live on Toff Tree Drive, 2410 Toff Tree Drive. I think about 31 years now. I am the secretary of the Linglestown Baseball Association. With me today is Brad Simpson, who's the treasurer. Unfortunately, our president was unavailable, so I'll be doing a few minutes of presentation. This is our first time coming for a local share grant to the township. We have worked with Terry and through her with the Parks and Recreation Committee. We've done a number of major things out at the park. Linglestown Baseball Association has been in existence since 1956, I believe. We primarily utilize Coons Park, currently utilizing 4 of the fields there. We maintain them. We also maintain the, what we call the midget clubhouse, which is behind the midget field, right down from the pool. We most recently took upon ourselves to gain volunteers and assistance and repainted the clubhouse at no cost to the township and with the agreement of the Parks and Recreation Board. We have 4 fields there, as we said. Some of the fencing at the fields is probably 40 years old. We've been repairing the fencing. We've been fixing it. Holes come in that fencing. We have issues sometimes with some of the neighbors on Balthaser Road with balls going there. The township, with our assistance, put up higher netting and fencing. We've been working with the neighbors. They are supporting us in this project. We are asking for the township support for a local grant through the gaming board of total of $160,000. Fencing is very expensive. This would be fencing for 4 fields there, what we call the midget field, which has the lights, the pony field, which is on Balthaser, the teener field, which is up at the corner of the park on Balthaser, and what was a softball field, which we've taken over, which we call a rookie field, which is the kids 7 and 8 years old. We service approximately 400 kids from ages of 5 through 19. A lot of participation. We like to think we're probably the biggest organization in Dauphin County for a number of people playing baseball. And as I said, we've been doing this a number of years. I've been involved for about 25 years. And in fact, used to play with Mrs. Lindsay's son, play softball with him, but that's an aside. So, I'm sorry, husband. Anyway, we have been getting estimates for the work. We intend to do some of the work ourselves. We'll do the dismantling of the fences, the tear down, but as I said, fencing is expensive. The other part of the project would be dugouts for 3 of the fields. The midget field dugout is fine, doesn't need any work other than normal maintenance, which we do. But the dugouts are old, they're falling down. The fencing is a particular consideration. Some of those posts are going to go eventually. They're going to collapse. That's harmful. The holes in the fences are, particularly in the backstops, are a problem. We've had balls go through on foul balls. We don't need spectators being hurt. We don't need fans being hurt. That is why we're anxious to do this project. It's an ambitious one for us. Again, we're a volunteer organization also. Multiple members that take part. We have a very active board, as I said, and we would request the support and recommendation of the township to go to the county with approval for this project with some, of course, priority, because we view it as something that we're enhancing the great park system that you heard about at no cost to the township. We've asked the township for assistance on the fencing. There's just no money. We understand that. But we're enhancing the township. The township is not used just, the park is not used just by us. It's used by the entire township. It's a large park. And there are times out there in pre-COVID days when every field is in use, and the football field is in use, and the tennis courts are in use, and the basketball courts. And it's great to see that. It's so exciting to see all those kids out there. And we're just trying to enhance that for the township. So we would welcome your support. Any questions? Anxious to answer those too.
We're very much looking forward to getting back to all that activity out there.
Oh, definitely.
Hopefully not too long.
Thanks for the information.
Yes.
Being your first time, you know all the cutoff dates and everything. You have everything.
Yes. We've
Okay.
already submitted our letter to the county. We know we have to have our grant application in by September 1. Now, I'm very aware of dates. It comes with what I do, unfortunately. But
And another thing, if something should happen and you don't get the full amount, Mr. Zumas and I last Monday night attended a Girl Scout Gold Award, or her project was the dugouts at East High.
Right.
So if something should happen, you might want to see if you can't find an Eagle Scout that might want to do a project.
Well, we actually had our small clubhouse, which is behind the Teener Field. That was rebuilt about 3 years ago by an Eagle Scout.
Oh, okay.
Oh, great.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that was his
Yeah.
final project, so he could become an Eagle Scout. So Yeah, I mean, we look into all kinds of things. We've had drags built by some of our players. I mean, literally, kids that were in Votech school built some stuff for us and things of that sort. So we recognize that. We prioritize what we need to do in our application. We think the fencing is the most important part.
Right.
And I know, sir, you're doing you're ripping it out, volunteers are tearing it out. Is
Yes.
that the contribution? Are you making any financial?
We have virtually no funds.
Okay.
Our funds every year, we carry over a little bit, but uniforms, balls, umpires' fees for the upper levels pretty much use our registration fees. We try hard to keep our registration fees down so everyone can play.
Right. I understand. Yeah, I know.
We
what it's
also,
like.
we've never turned anybody away because they can't afford the registration fee. We take care of that.
Good.
So yes, we view it as, we have members that are going to bring tractors and whatever it takes to tear it down.
There's a value of that. There's a price tag on that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's probably 25% of the overall project.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for enhancing the park.
Thank you.
Just no Red Sox fans. That's
I won't say what team I am, but I was born in New York, so we'll let it go.
your ranking just went way up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next is CASA, if you would.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill Thomas. I'm the Vice President of the Capital Area Soccer Association. Actually, the second document, I believe, is the presentation.
I was trying to figure out which one you would want, and
it's a little bit.
There we
go. There we go.
Nice fields.
Well, first, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to present today. We are asking for $25,000 for upgrades and improvements to our main soccer facility, which is located at Ranger Field and George Park. If you scroll down, I can give a little overview of CASA. We've been here before. Really great relationship with the township, with the supervisors, as well as with Terry and the Parks and Rec Board and the Parks and Rec Department. We've been around for 24 years. We're about 3,000 plus member organization with about 1,800 kids that play, ages 4 to 18. Just like every other organization, we are struggling a little bit right now. We had to cancel our spring season due to COVID, which really kind of put some pressure on us to really make some tough decisions moving forward. And a lot of the federal money that came down just doesn't really work for some of the organizations of our size that don't have a lot of full-time employment. But we've been able to kind of make things work. We are doing really well. We brought our kids back over the summer for a very socially distanced practices to get them kind of back up and running. We are planning our fall season, and we're hopeful that will go through. We're hoping that we're able to have a fall season. But one of the things that we have to continue to do with the amount of kids that we have is we need to continue to maintain the fields. Just like Linglestown baseball, we maintain the fields at Ranger and George. Those soccer fields we put about $20,000 a year into those fields to make sure that they're safe for play. And we can't stop that maintenance even if we don't have games going on, because we need them to be prepared just in case we have a fall season or when we're anticipating a fall season. One of the things that we've realized through this is that we don't necessarily we're not really efficient in kind of how we utilize some of those fields. So we're looking to be a little bit more efficient with some of the fields that are located at Ranger and George. We do utilize some fields at Lingle Park, but over the years, we don't maintain those fields. We don't seed them. We don't do any of the work that needs to go into a quality soccer field. Some of our travel teams play there. And we've actually had some reports that they are starting to be a little unsafe for play. I think some parents have actually reported that field to the CPYSL, which is our regional governing body. So we're hoping to bring all of our teams to the Ranger Field, George Park area. And one of those is this grant would go towards helping us to hydroseed and really prepare a field that would be used for some of our older age groups. We've I don't know if you can scroll up on the slides. Sorry about that.
This one or keep going?
Keep going. So we've had a multi-phase approach to upgrading the facility at Ringgold.
Look at that
and
crowd.
George.
Who's that?
I didn't do that. Yeah, I did that on purpose. That's right. Phase one is we did put about $100,000 into 2 fields at George Park. They are our 2 main fields for our elite travel programs and also for a lot of our camps and clinics that we host for our recreational players. And then we, one of for me, in being part of the organization, our biggest project was the brand new concession stand that we were able to contribute and put there at George Park, Ranger Field, actually. It's about a $120,000 project, and we're unfortunately we haven't used it yet. It hasn't been open. We cut the ribbon in October. We had it open for a little bit towards the end of our fall year, but we really haven't been able to take advantage of it because our spring season was canceled. But that is going to be a big opportunity for us to raise additional funds to be able to put back into our club and put back into our fields. So phase 3, which is what we're requesting money for now, is to improve and upgrade fields located, and Terry and I have talked, and we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit more detail. It may not be the field closest to Nyes Road, but we do want to be able to bring our 11v11 older travel team that plays at Lingle, bring them back to George Park or to Ranger Field, mainly because that field there for the competition level that our kids are playing at that level, just not 100% safe for play. It's just rutted. There's some slope issues. It's very that part of the park at Lingle is very much in use. So we want to be able to take our players off of there, and then it'll eventually rehabilitate that field, and then the general public or these other leagues that use them will be able to kind of have better playing surfaces as well. That is pretty much the presentation. We will be putting in, I think here's some of our sources of funding. As I mentioned, our funds we're struggling, but thanks to the generosity of our families, we had about 75% of our families who played spring rec donate their registration fee back to the club without a refund. That was a huge relief for us as a club, and really shows the commitment that our families have to the organization, and then also our organization's commitment back to Lower Paxton Township and the fields that we maintain. So we're hoping to put about $10,000 of our own money back into the project through some fundraisers we'll do in the spring once we're up and running. The fall season, we're going to give a break on our families from having to do raffle tickets or things like that. We want to get them back on the field and have them play. But in the spring, we'll kind of ramp up our fundraising opportunities again. And then in-kind services, that concession stand, again, we received about $34,000 from the county 2 years ago in 2017 for that concession stand. And the rest of that money was through in-kind services from our volunteers and our families, and also some sponsorships that we were able to, from great corporate sponsors, to help us make that thing happen. So we are very confident that we'll be able to have and minimize the costs associated with that field with some of the in-kind services we can do from our volunteers who were so critical in making that concession stand a reality. We've already been awarded before last year some of the tourism money through Dauphin County, which we applied to our current invoices for the company we use for our turf. So we will apply some of that relief that we had back to the project as well. That's it.
Good.
Any questions or
Questions, board members?
Well, I love CASA. My kids grew up on those fields. You mentioned just seeding and trying to, what else is making up that $47,000?
So the overseeding and the hydroseeding is the big expense that comes out of being able to just allow the grass to grow and allow the grass to be a high quality grass that comes up that then allows us to then maintain those fields throughout. So the remainder of the year we'll have to continue to seed and continue to I think aerate the fields But over that full year, like I said, for the other 2 fields, we have about $20,000 in maintenance costs for those 2 fields to maintain those every year. We pay, I think it's 3 times a year we pay an amount to the company that comes out and does it. So initially, it's really about getting overseeding and the quality seed to be able to have that quality grass grow. That is the bulk of the cost.
Well, I know you guys run a pretty tight ship. The registration fee has remained pretty constant for almost as long as I can remember, maybe, $10 or $20 or something like that. And we look at this, and when the county looks at it with the sports-related request, we got the specter hanging over us where we don't even know to what degree we can use these fields and when they'll be used to their maximum. And I hate that that's hanging over our heads. But that is, I'm sure, ultimately the county will probably factor that in as far as, what's the most immediate need and when will kids actually be able to go out there.
Right, and I can say that one of the things that we have an obligation as a club is to be prepared for when that happens, and we have to maintain these fields regardless of whether we're using them right now or not, because we've already invested. It's an initial investment of $100,000 plus an additional, $10,000 to $20,000 over the last 5 or 6 years back into these fields. If we don't maintain them, they become a situation almost to what we were faced with Lingo, where they may not be safe for play, especially for the level of soccer that some of our teams are playing now. We do have a tournament every year. We just announced last week that we had to postpone that tournament until April because of the pandemic. But those fields, the quality of those fields is what will attract teams to our tournament. And we've been attracting anywhere between 75 to 120 teams per year, depending on what other tournaments might be going on. And Mr. Blaine is in the audience. He was our tournament czar for a very long time and was able to get, I think, up to 120 teams, I think, in his last year of being part of our... he was a taskmaster, I tell you, absolutely a czar. But that's an economic development tourism tool that we try to utilize to bring clubs into the from out of town into the area. Obviously, we could not do that this year. We could not have teams from the western part of the state or from New Jersey, Maryland, other places coming up, West Virginia. We just didn't want to take that risk, and really out of an abundance of caution. But that's a big hit to our bottom line as well, is the inability to do the tournament. I am confident that we will have a fall season. Our governing body, EPYSA, has said that they will move forward, and that is our hope, is to be able. We've put in tremendous safety protocols. Our first couple of practices have been socially distant, no sharing of water bottles, all the things that we are required by state and CDC guidelines plus EPYSA guidelines. We have done everything and beyond. So we're very hopeful, but you're right. I mean, it's going to take that confidence to be able to know that we have those fields available and that our kids will be out there using them.
And would your decisions as far as playing in the fall have anything to do with what PIAA says? I mean, would it be a situation where schools can't play sports, but CASA would be?
Well, that's a larger discussion, I think, with the.
It's a loaded question. You're not here for that. I understand.
Well, I mean, look, I think we are not governed by PIAA. We are governed by the Eastern Pennsylvania Youth Soccer Association, who has their guidelines and protocols that we've been following. But of course, we would have to have those discussions with the Parks and Rec Department, with the Board of Supervisors, to make sure that we are following what your thoughts and wishes are as the actual elected officials who are accountable to the voters. We're not necessarily accountable to the voters, so we would need to come to you, and our hope would be that we would be able to move forward, and that's what we're planning to do. And I think we have the protocols in place to swiftly shut the program down when needed, to be able to have the contact tracing we believe that's necessary in case there is. To date, we've been pretty fortunate. There have been very few, if any, cases, and we've been practicing since June the end of June.
Okay, and thank you. I know this was not your purpose there, but you're in touch with Terry, so that's good.
Right,
All right.
yes, our organization is in touch with Terry
Okay,
on
thank
that.
you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
I just had a question.
This whole issue is one that we're like everybody else. We had lengthy discussion about that already this evening. The situation seems to change from week to week in dramatic ways, so we're trying to work our way through it and see what's the safest thing to do for all concerned. But
Yeah, I just had a question about Lingle. What do we need to do to bring that field to be safe? Because we need, if that field is not safe, we need to take care of that.
Yeah, and I talked to Terry about this last week, and we'll try to provide some more. We don't necessarily, again, we don't maintain that field, so I can't answer that tonight.
Okay.
Our folks that are at Ranger and George that kind of mow it and take care of it and understand the soccer perspective of where the fields need to be for competition. We can assess that. There are 2 teams that I believe on Casas that play over there because it is a bigger field, 11v11, and it can. But we can get that information for you.
Yeah, because I just don't want anybody twisting an ankle because you said about the ruts and stuff.
Yeah,
So, okay,
absolutely.
great. Thank you.
very good. Well, let's move on then to the, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the NutriPack program.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Linda Delago. I live at 7771 Manada Creek Drive, West Hanover Township.
I'm Karen Withrow at 1311 Albany Road.
Introduce myself a little bit. I'm on the school board, Central Dauphin School Board, Board of Directors. I'm on the Panther Ram Foundation Board of Directors, and I'm co-director for the NutriPack program. Karen and I are responsible for getting our grant monies to sustain our program. We've been here before. We thank you for your support. And again, we're asking for the support of your sponsorship for the gaming grant for this year coming up. We're asking $80,000 to sustain our program, to continue operating it. We are moving into the program feeds children in the Central Dauphin School District in all elementary schools and the 4 middle schools. We've moved into the middle schools this year. So, and we know with the economic disaster that the coronavirus has done to our community, we're hoping that we can run the program and sustain it like we have. It runs for 36 weeks. It's a weekend program providing food, non-perishable food that we purchase through the food bank. So currently we have $50,000 in our till from last year because we had to shut down the program early in March due to school ending and everything going virtual or whatever. So, so we do have a little bit of money in our account. Our budget this year is about $350,000 if we want to sustain 36 weeks at $11 a bag and 800 bags a week. So, but that's what we do, and we do it a weekly. So.
I've lived in the township for over 40 years, and until I started working with NutriPacks about 7 years ago, I had no idea that there's a lot of poverty and a lot of food insecurity in the township. I don't think a lot of people realize that 43 to 44% of the kids who attend Central Dauphin schools qualify for free and reduced lunches, and they have, and also the breakfast program, and they have that during the school week. But on the weekends and during vacations, a lot of our families who depend so much on those in-school programs don't have the opportunity to make use of them. So, to summarize our program, it's basically we feed hungry children. We have, some lower income students. We have some families who are totally food insecure, which means that they do not know where their next meal is coming from. This program started back in 2010, and they were feeding about 80 kids out of the trunk of a counselor's car. We now have over 800 kids who are enrolled in the program. We also have an education program that goes with it because our mission is to try and teach children and families how to live healthier lives. And when kids come to school and they haven't had much to eat over the weekend, research shows that they suffer from headaches and stomach aches and inability to concentrate, and that often affects their ability to learn. So, our program is totally funded by grants and donations. We have a lot of sponsors from churches. We have over 200 volunteers who work on our program and pack those backpacks that are given out every week. And it's always been our goal to move into the middle school, and we finally this year thought this was the way we could do it. Actually, our budget has gone up some this year because we did receive a grant and funding to purchase a commercial refrigerator and freezer this year. So that has made it easier for us to expand the type of food that we can give. We can give out more things like produce and meat and eggs. And what we have tried to do is to make more complete meals for the children. So it's not just a little goodie here and a goodie there. I mean, everything that we've given out in the past has been nutritious, but we're working more now on trying to give them, a wider selection of foods, and also to make sure that they're, getting a complete meal whenever possible. We did have to shut down in April because of the virus, and so much of ours depends on the schools being open because the kids and their families pick up their backpacks during the school day at the end of the week or at the middle school where the packing is done. However, this summer we have partnered with the food bank, and we've been giving out over 500 boxes every week, the CR COVID relief boxes, so that we know the need is out there. At this point, we're not sure what will happen come September. We don't know if schools will be open, but we have worked on a contingency plan and have worked with some churches to see if there are other opportunities. We were kind of caught off guard in April, when the schools closed, but the need is there, and we feel that the need will continue for this year.
So when you have a situation where you're going to have maybe some of the students there a couple days a week and a different group of students other days a week, or if something happens and it goes to all online for months, how do you then get the food into the hands of the students? Because I would assume the need doesn't go away just because school isn't happening.
Well,
how do you do that? Or don't you know yet?
I think everybody's learning as we go along.
Yeah.
But as I say, we're trying to make the plan so that if we can't use the high school or the middle school for packing, we've talked to a couple churches to see if we could do the packing there. And it may be a case that if the schools would have to close down, especially the elementary schools, where a lot of people pick up, at their local elementary school on Thursday or Friday, they may have to, come to a central location. Our students and their families have the choice of picking up at their local elementary school or at CD Middle School on Wednesday night, and it may be that we have to go to all one location. We'll just have to see how things go. As you know, things are changing every week.
Yeah. Central Dauphin is
very aware.
Has 7 municipalities. Are there any others that receive this kind of casino money that you apply to grants to, like to get their support?
We don't apply to any other townships. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we apply for other grants, UPMC grant, but no other municipalities.
I don't know if they all even qualify for these types of grants. West Hanover, I imagine.
This is just our opportunity is just, for you to sponsor us in our program for the gaming grant, but yeah.
We probably only need one sponsor.
Yeah.
And since the administration building's in the township.
And we have applications in and have received funding in the past from the Ronald McDonald House and from UPMC Pinnacle and from Rite Aid and a number of local grants.
Well, we had, with me and Linda and Jay Wenger, we had 3 current or former school board members in this room tonight. So I think that's momentous in and of itself. Linda's been doing this for a while, and I know it's a worthy cause.
God bless you for the challenge you have at the moment. we look at our challenges and then look at the school board and go, whoa, boy, they really have a tough job. So
I started volunteering with the NutriPAC in January, and I'm going to cry because it is. It's amazing what you take for granted, that you can just go to the pantry and open up, and these children have nothing. You know, in fact, Mr. Blaine's son volunteered with us a couple of times, and those kids, they really worked hard, you know, because a lot of times you're putting 15, 16 things in a backpack. And like I said, you just take for granted you can go and get it. And those kids, and now with not having school, you know, you just wonder, are they getting breakfast? Are they getting lunch? Where in school, at least they got breakfast and lunch, you know. So it's a great program.
And I think the state will continue to provide breakfast and lunch on a daily basis as we go virtual or however we go back to school.
Or they can go
They're
pick
still-
up like the car thing,
like the
if they
car
have
thing.
if they have a car to get there.
Right.
Yeah, because I know one of the families that we serviced at middle school, a lady came and picked up because they do not have a car, and she came and she delivered it to them. So.
Well, that's part of the reason we give them the opportunity to pick up at the middle school or to pick up at their elementary school.
Yeah.
If they pick up at the middle school, we have more refrigeration units, you know. At the elementary schools, we don't have the ability to refrigerate as long, but, you know, they're given their
But
choice.
I didn't realize with the program until I started volunteering in January.
Thank you for volunteering.
thank you very much.
Thank you for
Yeah,
your time.
thank you. So Mr. Blaine is also the food czar, too.
Wow.
Well, his son.
His son is the food
He's a hard worker.
The title czar is hereditary, so.
Yes.
there.
Well, I think it's important to know that a lot of the work is done by a lot of the athletic programs at Central Dauphin, whether it's or volleyball or whatever. Time,
Yeah. Yeah, usually we have 13 adult volunteers, and then the kids come. So if you want to volunteer, you'll get your steps in, because trust me, you're moving.
Okay, do we have a representative from the campus? If you would come to the podium, sir. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Alan Geckel. I'm the CEO of the campus. Most people know the campus as the Jewish Home of Greater Harrisburg out on Linglestown Road. We are a full-service CCRC, which is a continuing care retirement community, so we have everything from independent living through skilled care and rehabilitation. We have approximately, at any given time, around 190 to 195 seniors living on our campus. It's down a little bit because of COVID, but we've actually been pretty successful in maintaining a good census throughout the pandemic. About 60% of the residents living on our campus are on some sort of government assistance as far as medical assistance for their monthly costs and things like that. Some are on Medicare. A very small portion of the population are private pay individuals. So we serve, again, in the neighborhood of 190 to 195 residents at any given time. Many of those residents are either from the township and or are the parents of people residing in the township where the child has moved them into the area to have a better chance to provide or participate in their care. And the remainder of those just come because of our reputation for care. So we get people from other townships, obviously, just because they want the care that's provided there. All three of the projects that we're asking for support from Lower Paxton on are intended to just improve and enhance the quality of life of those residents. A lot of our residents do not get out of the building, and that's one of the projects that I'll go into here in a second. The total ask of the gaming money that we're putting forth is about $75,000. That's to cover about 39% of the $192,000 that we estimate the three projects are going to cost us. In addition to those 190 to 195 residents, we have about 250 to 275 staff and volunteers that help out at the campus or work at the campus, part-time, full-time, whatever.
Now, the project specifically that, that we're looking to get funding for, again, all three are intended to enhance the quality of life for our residents. The first is an expansion of therapy. We do have therapy gyms in our facilities, both in our personal care home and our skilled nursing environment. Both are aged, both need renovations and facelifts, new equipment, upgrades on equipment, things like that. One of our big goals over the next couple of years is not just to serve the residents that live on the campus, but I call it a true senior gym. We want to have a Gold's Gym for seniors, if you will. One of the things I found when I was rehabilitating, that a lot of the elderly that come into a gym are intimidated by the other people that are in there aggressively going after it. And they can't keep up and they get frustrated. So by having a source for outpatient therapy on our campus, it'll allow people to come from outside. The second area is the bathing area. And we take a lot for granted that we eat what we want, sleep where we want and when we want, and take showers, baths, whatever, whenever we want. A lot of our residents are told when that's going to happen, and they're limited to how many opportunities they get a week. Upgrading our bathing facilities in our skilled nursing environment. Our personal care home, they have private showers and private baths, but in the skilled environment, that's not practical because they have to be supervised or assisted. So what we're looking to do is renovate that, make it a little more ADA friendly, make it a little bit more aesthetically friendly, make it a little safer, and some of this request is for upgrades in that. The third request is for a wheelchair accessible van. Some of our equipment, we just put a van out of service that had about 125,000 miles on it. It was a 2010 van. What we're looking to do is grow our fleet a little bit, get another bigger van that we can put 4 or 5 wheelchairs in at a time. That helps with activities and social outings. We do about 150 or more trips a month between our different vehicles, and we don't have the capacity to get a lot of those residents. When you think about 190 residents and trying to get them out, even an escape for a couple of hours to go to lunch is a big deal for them. To go for a drive in the country in the fall and look at leaves changing is a big deal for them, and having that wheelchair accessible van makes that possible. Interestingly, one of the reasons we're tying this to the casino request is that one of our residents' favorite places to go on an outing is the casino. So we, our personal care home runs trips out there. Pre-COVID, they ran trips out there every couple of weeks, and it's usually an arm wrestling match to see which residents are going to get to go on those trips. So it's pretty appropriate to put that in there where it's going to make it easier for some of our residents to get to those type of social outings. So I think that kind of summarizes where we're coming from with the request. Hopefully you'll see fit to include us in your recommendations. You did support us a couple of times in the past. We did a generator project, and amazingly, probably a month or so after that went live, it came to use. Power went out for a couple of hours, and heat and other things. That was in the winter, and heat and other things kept running seamlessly. I knew it happened because I saw the lights flicker, so I knew the generator kicked on, but not a resident in either building realized that we had lost power. The generators kicked in and took over, so that was an incredible project for us that really did make a difference. So hopefully we can pull these projects off this year as well. And again, this represents about 40%, 39 or 40% of what we expect our project budget to be. Some of that will be handled, the difference will be handled through our own capital expenditures, and then some others will be between board and community fundraising efforts.
Maybe you can put in your application that your residents contribute to these grants.
In a big way. Those are not the ones that are on limited incomes, so they do contribute in a big way.
Any other questions, board members? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Director Koshiba.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and fellow applicants for the gaming grant. I wish you luck. My name is Adam Koshiba. I'm the Director of Public Safety for Lower Paxton Township and the Chief Executive Officer for the Lower Paxton Township Police Department. Our intent this year, this will be my first time ever applying for the grant funds. I believe directors have done this in the past. However, this is my first. Our intent with our application is for a body-worn camera, mobile vehicle recorder, and audio integration project. So what does that mean? So first and foremost, we do not currently have body-worn cameras for our 59 sworn officers, minus some vacancies that we do have. We do have mobile, we call them MVRs, mobile video recorders in the cars, in-car cameras, in all of our patrol units. The issue with those patrol units and those cameras in those units, they range from 6 to 10 years old, and they all, with the exception of one camera, I believe it is, are not able to integrate with a body-worn camera system. So we have to replace all those cameras to be able to integrate with the camera and split the views and get the audio on both the in-car camera and the body cameras. So just give you a little backstory on law enforcement as a whole in 2019, according to a FBI report of officers killed in the line of duty, and the importance of body-worn cameras, especially those that are able to integrate with the car cameras. So there are 48 officers killed in 2019 in the line of duty. Approximately 15 of those, just 15 of those, occurred near or in front of, in proximity to the vehicle. So they were captured, those deaths, unfortunately, or fortunately, were captured on the car cameras. That left about 33 that were not. They occurred someplace remote from the car, out of view of that fixed angle, that fixed camera coming out of the windshield of the car. Fortunately for many of those prosecutors that had to deal with those in the police departments and families that had to deal with the closure of all those losses, many of those had body-worn cameras and were able to recover a lot of evidence that supported either the arrest or just given some families some closure. So what are the potential benefits along those lines? The potential benefits are vast, but just to name a few, obviously in the realm that we are in now, and in reference to everything that's been going on across the United States, they're gonna provide us with better transparency for our officer-citizen interactions. They're going to show increased civility both on the side of the officer and hopefully on the side of the civilian on that interaction. Quicker resolutions to any kind of complaints, whether it be internal complaints or complaints lodged by citizens about officer misconduct. Corroborating evidence to help us prosecute an individual for a particular crime, and also training opportunities for our officers to view their video cameras and see things that they could have done better as a result of having that body-worn camera and integration with the mobile video camera. As we look at it, what it provides, the body-worn camera especially provides for us, is it provides, as the officer activates, depending on the policy, activates that body camera, you're seeing that entire interaction as soon as they step away from that car, before, during, and after the arrest. And all the information contained therein is also helpful to the prosecution or the internal complaint that may be lodged as a result of their need to affect the arrest. Give you a little bit of backstory on Lower Paxton Township for the people watching who may not be aware of this. Lower Paxton Township obviously is 28.17 square miles. In 2019, our officers responded to a total of 28,671 calls for service. Nearly 10,000 of those calls for service were somewhere, again, away from that car, away from that view of that camera. So that's 10,000 opportunities that something could have happened, and we wouldn't have evidence of that. I'll give one particular example that I'm intimately familiar with. It occurred in one of our communities here, not too far from the the station. One of the officers was attempting to serve an arrest warrant. He exited his patrol vehicle, and the individual fled on foot. It showed the officer fleeing after that individual on foot, and they disappeared into a wooded area. And once in the wooded area, a scuffle ensued. The officer had his taser removed from him, so it was taken from the individual. He was able to radio out some assistance and dial folks in to get assistance to him, and ultimately that person was taken into custody. However, our officer was injured in the process, so was the suspect, and no video camera present on our officer able to recover. And God help us if we would have even been in a worse situation where that individual would have fled. We wouldn't have had any footage in that wooded area on what he might have done to our officer. So the final financial hardships that are affecting everyone due to COVID-19, as we've heard in previous meetings, Lower Paxton no, they're not going to circumvent the hardships here. We were hit with 13.6% unemployment in the township at the peak of it. And as a result of that, as we all know in previous budget meetings, the adjustments, we were required to, in the police department, to reduce our budget of the year we are currently in 2020, some $330,000. So money is tight, as it is with every household, every township across the United States. Cost of our project, as you see when you go down through our grant application, it was split up as $346,946.75 or $64,193.58. That will be the price moving forward that will push the final grant application to the gaming board of $64,193.58. And I just received an email today that they would like, due to the loss of their funding because of COVID, they would like those grant applications coming in at 150 or less, so I will adjust that accordingly. And that will be a 6-year project, so I'll probably be back in front of you each year for the next 5 years. Our timeline for this would be from January, sometime between January to April of 2021. We've received supporting documentation from the Dauphin County District Attorney, Mr. Franchardo, expressing the importance of having a integration project, especially the body-worn cameras. Also this project is backed by the Lower Paxton Township Police Officers Association, so they too are supporting this project. The pre-application teleconference happened last Friday. That was some good information that I was able to obtain from that, and moving forward can make some minor adjustments again into the final grant application to the county. And in closing, I would ask the Board of Supervisors to strongly consider our grant application for this very important project and provide the highest possible endorsement as we move forward. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Director.
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to congratulate you on the grant for $298,000 for Colonial Park and Linglestown Fire Company for air packs.
Yes, and I thank the members of the board for the support with our grant writer on that. Again, very successful, and for the members of the community, this individual that we employed as a grant writer with the approval of the Board of Supervisors to pay this individual, ultimately in two grant applications and awards, almost $750,000 to
You
the
got the
township.
SAFER grant. That was what, $384,000?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Great, congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good return on investment.
Extremely good return on investment. Devin Poole. Y'all have been very patient this evening. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. My name is Mike Gillespie. I'm a volunteer member of Devon Manor Swim Club. I don't have a formal presentation tonight. I just want to first of all say thank you for your previous support and the grant. This program has helped us to be successful, and your support has led us in the way to increasing our membership over the last few years. We are now at 343 members or families that joined the club, and that's about a 25% increase over the last 5 years and a 14% increase last year. So people have noted the improvements that have been made to the swim club. Most of the previous improvements have been associated with exterior improvements. We got a new parking lot. We had safety improvements to the pool, and we've made outside structure improvements. What's generally left for us is we need improvements to the interior of our pool house. It's basically plumbing, electric, and modernizing the bathrooms that are 57 years old. We started in 1963, so it's time to do that work. We are having repair issues with leakage and with water and that type of activity. So our proposal here is to request another $49,000. We have $10,000 or 20% match for that, and we would really appreciate your support in moving forward so we can do some more improvements to the swim club. And thank you again for your past support.
Thank you. Now, you were not able to open it all this year because of the COVID situation?
Correct. We decided not to. I mean, every pool is different when you look at the criteria from the CDC. And with the size of our deck area, the size of our membership, the staffing we had, we didn't feel that we could safely open the pool and comply with the CDC requirements. It was a difficult decision, but we put out a letter to our memberships. We put out about 500 letters, and I think the community has supported that in general and understood where we were coming from in making that decision. But we're looking forward to next year and being ready. We are doing some improvements on our own this summer, painting and that type of thing to try to make it even more attractive for next year.
Good.
We're all looking forward to this being in the rearview mirror.
Yes, we are.
Any board questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's see, last but certainly not least, the Colonial Park Volunteer Fire Department. And anybody here to discuss their request for funding? $39,950 funding request to upgrade existing sign to provide public safety messages. I would assume that means a variable message board out front. Oh, there we go. And there's the current sign. And
I was wondering, do they want to put an electronic sign in, Brad?
leverage.
I'm not actually quite sure. This request came only today, so I haven't had a chance to review it. And
all right.
It says electronic message board.
Oh, I must have missed that. Okay.
I would assume it's similar to Linglestown's.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Okay, well, I think we pretty much know what they want to do. And they have their current sign's a very attractive sign.
Yeah, it's just they have to keep changing the lettering, I guess.
Yeah, nobody wants to go out and change the letters all the time anymore, do they? That's an old way of doing it. Okay, well, that, I believe, are all the presentations on the proposed Dauphin County Local Share Grant applications. The board will review this, and we'll do a ranking of the requests. And will we do that next week? You'll do that next week?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Certainly, every project presented here is worthy. I don't know how much money they're going to have this year, but it's certainly worthy. We now need to take action on Resolution 2020-20, this accepting the dedication of additional right-of-way along the east side of Fairmont Drive. Mr. Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, last week we had a similar resolution. It was for Locust Lane, and this is in the same vicinity. It's along Fairmont Drive on the east side. And again, this will assist the township in getting the necessary right-of-way to put in the traffic signal at that particular intersection.
Okay. A project that continues to move along. And we're still looking to have some preliminary work this season, and if all stays on track, installation of the signal in the spring, late spring. Yeah. So people don't expect it in March. That's okay. Is there any questions about Resolution 2020-20? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept and approve Resolution 2020 accepting the dedication of additional right-of-way along the east side of Fairmont Drive as detailed in the attachment and get this project moving.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mrs. Lindsay, do you feel the need to recuse on this, or shall we just?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Okay. With that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we've approved the resolution. That takes us to subdivision and land development improvement guarantees, of which there is only one. Releasing the Dauphin County Technical School from their escrow. All is in order. Is there a motion on the improvement guarantee?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the improvement guarantee for Dauphin County Technical School, which is a release.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That takes us to announcements. I would like to point out that tomorrow at noon at Heroes Grove, there's going to be a program in support of our local police. So we would urge folks who are available to go to Heroes Grove to, first of all, see Heroes Grove if you haven't. Very impressive facility with major second phase slated to begin a little later this fall, but tomorrow a rally in support of our police departments. Board members, anybody else have an announcement?
I think we're good.
We're good. Mr. Judd?
No, sir.
Okay. With that, our next board meeting will be our regular business meeting 1 week from tonight, Tuesday, August 18th at 7 p.m. here in this room. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. A lot of material today. A lot of